Today's episode is brought to you by the Daily Gardener Friday newsletter. You can sign up for the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. Hi there and welcome to The Daily Gardener, a podcast about garden history and literature. I'm your host, Jennifer Eveling, and today is May 4th. Well, happy Bird Day. In case you were wondering, today is one of many different bird days that are celebrated in the United States. This day celebrates birds of all kinds across North America. And I shared over in the Facebook group that I have a pair of mourning doves who have built their nest up in the porch rafters at the cabin. And we happen to have a little window that I can see out onto the porch. And I can see this mourning dove just perfectly. We're eye level with each other because I'm standing up on the landing when I look out of this window. Anyway, one of the things that I noticed in contrast to the robins that generally nest there every year is that while the robins will fly away, the mourning doves just stay put. They could care less if I'm out on the porch or even if I let Max out. So that's crazy to me, but that's just their makeup. So anyway, happy National Bird Day. Today in garden history, we remember Luca Ghini, the Italian physician and botanist who died on this day, May 4th in 1556. Luca is remembered for creating the very first recorded herbarium and also the very first botanical garden in Pisa, Italy. Now, historical accounts indicate that Luca was an outstanding and beloved botany teacher at the University of Bologna. In 1526, Luca was giving lectures on medicinal plants and essentially teaching what is considered to be the very first university-level classes on botany. Luca was also the first person to press flowers, to create his plant collection, and it wasn't until the 1770s that the English botanist William Withering would write about flower pressing. Luca used his pressed and dried plants in the same way that future botanists would. He used them to study plants when fresh or live specimens were not available. And in this way, Luca could teach his students, and they could use the dried specimens as well to continue their studies all year long. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Luca was a fabulous mentor to his students. He took them on field trips and encouraged them to learn all they could about plants. He would direct them to the latest herbals that were written about plants, and he, of course, taught them about drying and preserving specimens. And if Luca Ghini seems like an obscure character in botanical history, despite all of the magnificent things he accomplished, it's because he didn't publish anything. He was too busy interacting with his botanist peers and teaching his students, through whom he left a lasting legacy. And there are many accounts of Luca's students being sad and despondent after his death on this day in 1556. And it was on this day, May 4th in 1749, that the English novelist and romantic poet Charlotte Turner Smith was born. Charlotte revived the English sonnet, and she was an early writer of Gothic fiction, and she helped establish the genre. Charlotte's novels Emmeline, which was written in 1788, and then Desmond, which was written 4 years later in 1792, reflect two sides of the same coin, womanly hope and disenfranchisement with 18th century common law. Charlotte had been forced to marry at 15. Her husband was a thug, and while she was eventually able to break free of him, she clearly suffered as a result of this relationship. Charlotte once wrote these words in one of her garden-inspired poems. "O hope, thou soother sweet of human woes, how shall I lure thee to my haunts forlorn? For me will thou renew the withered rose, and clear my painful path of pointed thorn." And here's an excerpt of Charlotte's poem called Written at the Close of Spring. The garlands fade that spring so lately wove, each simple flower which she had nursed in dew. Anemones that spangled every grove, the primrose wan, and the harebell mildly blue. No more shall violets linger in the dell, or purple orchis variegate the plain, till spring again shall call forth every bell, and dress with humid hands her wreaths again. Another May new buds and flowers shall bring. Why has happiness no second spring? And today we celebrate the birthday of the English writer and herbalist Sophie Emma Magdalene Grieve, who went by the pen name Mrs. Grieve. Her friends called her Maud. She was born on this day, May 4th, in 1858. In addition to her writing, Maud founded an herb school and farm in England, where she was a fellow of the RHS, president of the British Guild of Herb Growers, and fellow of the British Science Guild. But today, Maud is best remembered for her 1931 book, A Modern Herbal. Mrs. Grieve's herbal is still regarded as one of the best herbals ever written. Maud provided detailed information about each herb she profiled, along with medicinal actions and uses. And I thought you'd enjoy a little sampling of the information she provided. So here's just a handful of plants and then a few of the comments that Maud wrote about them. Regarding purple loosestrife, she wrote, "As an eye wash, this invasive herb is superior to eyebright for preserving the sight and curing sore eyes." Regarding chives, they're coming up in my garden right now, she wrote, "Useful for cutting up and mixing with the food of newly hatched turkeys." There's a little known fact for you about chives. And then regarding borage, she wrote, "May be regarded as a garden escape," which of course is a very delicate way of saying that it is incredibly invasive, borage. But it's beautiful. It's got that gorgeous blue flower, but it is invasive, or a garden escape, as per Mrs. Grieve. Then regarding valerian, she wrote, "A powerful nervine and stimulant. The drug allays pain and promotes sleep." And during the recent war, she was referring to World War I, when air raids were a serious strain on the nerves of civilian men and women, valerian proved wonderfully efficacious, preventing or minimizing serious results. Then regarding garlic, she wrote, "There's a Mohammedan legend that says when Satan stepped out from the Garden of Eden after the fall of man, garlic sprang up from the spot where he placed his left foot, and then onion from that where his right foot touched." And that's something else that you'll see in Mrs. Grieve's herbal. You'll see this wonderful sprinkling of folklore and legend about each of these plants. So let's see here. We've got 3 left. Regarding moneywort, she says, "We're told by old writers that this herb was not only used by man, but that if serpents were hurt or wounded, they turned to this plant for healing. And so that's why it's sometimes called serpentaria. So if you ever hear moneywort called that, that's the reason why. And that's a fun fact that I'm going to share with my student gardeners this year. I've got plenty of moneywort or creeping jenny in my garden. And then regarding the plant known as church steeple or agrimony, Mrs. Grieve writes, "The small root is sweet scented, especially in spring." So if you have never dug up the roots of church steeple, this is the spring to give that a try and then check out that fragrance. And then Mrs. Grieve writes, "It's probable that the lemon is the most valuable of all fruit for preserving health." So fascinating little insight on lemon there. And then here's what she wrote about English summers. I just wanted to add this in because it's so sweet. She writes, "It's been said with some truth that our English summer is not here until the elder is fully in flower, and that it ends when the berries are ripe." Very sweet. All right, and today we also celebrate the birthday of Margaret Leland Goldsmith, the American journalist, historic novelist, and translator. She was born on this day, May 4th, in 1894. In June of 1936, in an article called The Perils of Gardening, which she wrote for Scribner's Magazine, Margaret shared her dislike for the color magenta. Here's what she said. For years, I have avoided magenta with a feverish zest. I do not like it. It kills my henna reds. It fights with the cedar brown of my cottage. Yet every year, there is something of that hue that intrudes. If it isn't Sweet William reverting to type, it's a red phlox gone decadent. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, The Little Library Year by Kate Young. Oh, I cannot tell you how long I've been waiting to share this book with you. It is such a treat. This book came out in 2020, the perfect time for it because it was in the pandemic. And the subtitle to this book is Recipes and Reading to Suit Each Season. Well, the publisher does a great job of succinctly telling you about Kate's book. So I'm going to read that to you here, and then I'll give you a little excerpt. But the publisher writes, The Little Library Year takes you through a full 12 months in award-winning food writer Kate Young's kitchen. Here are frugal January meals enjoyed alone with a classic comfort read, as well as summer feasts to be eaten outdoors with the perfect beach read in hand. Beautifully photographed throughout, The Little Library Year is full of delicious seasonal recipes, menus, and reading recommendations, which is one of the reasons why I absolutely squealed when I first found out about Kate's book. Now, you'll be happy to know that the cover is beautiful. It truly is the cover of a gardener because she's got a little desk with a little coffee mug, and then she's got potted herbs that are stacked on top of books. It looks like she's got a little blue journal there with a pen resting on top. And then the herbs that are there, let's see, it looks like maybe some pineapple sage with thyme and, of course, rosemary. So, yay, it is just perfect. Now, Diana Henry's review of this book is right on the cover. She writes, recipes you long to cook, suggestions for books you want to read, a sense of place and season, and takes of life lived thoughtfully and well. This is a very special book written with great generosity. And she is so right. Now, I wanted to share with you this little excerpt from Kate about how she broke down the seasons for her book. She writes, I have broken the year into 6 parts, those long winter nights in January and February, the first signs of spring in March and April, the green months of May and June when spring is in abundance, the height of summer in July and August, the weeks when the leaves start to turn in September and October, and then the final months of the year as the days grow short. And then she writes, I have written The Little Library Year as a literary and culinary almanac, a celebration of each and every season and a way to capture the year in books and food. And isn't that fantastic? Well, this book is a treat. You really should treat yourself with this book. And then if you fall in love with Kate Young, check out her author page because she has many, many delightful books. She's a great writer, one of my favorites. This book is 336 pages of garden fresh recipes, life stories, and of course, books, books, books. You can get a copy of The Little Library Year by Kate Young and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $20. But you're going to need to hurry because those used copies at that price will go quickly. Finally, we end the show today with a Botanic Spark that celebrates the birthday of Gail Carriger. That's the pen name of Topha Beauregard. She was born on this day, May 4th in 1976. Gail is a New York Times best-selling author of steampunk fiction, and before that, she was a trained archaeologist. Now, in the first book of her delightfully deadly series called Poison or Protect, a sexy assassin, a Scotsman, and 2 lobsters attend a Victorian house party in a charming story of love and espionage. And Gail introduces us to her main character this way. The assassin is Lady Prussia Valentia, who has 4 dead husbands and a nasty reputation. But fortunately, she looks fabulous in black. Now, what society doesn't know is that all her husbands were marked for death by Prussia's employer, and Prussia has one final assignment. So I hope you find that as intriguing as I did. But I thought I'd end the show today with a little garden-inspired excerpt from Poison or Protect. And it's from a scene in the book where one of the characters, Lady Violet, says these words. She says, "We do not suit. You have no genuine interest in botany." Lady Violet practically yelled her conclusion. And this was the biggest sin of them all. Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks for listening, and may the 4th be with you, and happy National Bird Day. Just a reminder that you have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for listeners of the show. The next time you're over at Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and then request to join. And if you'd like more of The Daily Gardener, you can subscribe to the newsletter over at thedailygardener.org. And don't forget that you can also show your support for the show by using the Buy Me a Coffee link over at the website or in today's show notes. This is Jennifer Ebling. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day.